Hello everyone, welcome to the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm of course your host TJ West, and today I'm very happy to be talking about A Nice Indian Boy, a very lovely little film that I just watched last night, and which I'm very happy to review. I also did a more extensive review on my newsletter, Omnivorous, at Substack, but I want to just sort of give a more condensed version of that, but also talk about how much I love the film and, how it's about feelings, because that's what we're all about here at the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. So, the film stars Karan Soni and Jonathan Groff. Soni plays the character of Naveen, who is Indian American. His parents are immigrants. He's a doctor. He kind of yearns for a big Indian wedding. Jay, on the other hand, that's Jonathan Groff's character, was raised by Indian parents after spending a great deal of time in the foster care system. And they have a sort of meet cute where they encounter one another at a temple, and then again when Jay is taking the photographs for the hospital where Naveen works as a doctor. And thereafter, they kind of have this, whirlwind romance, each of them bringing something unique to the table as far as their relationship goes, and of course having their fair share of difficulties to overcome, as tends to happen in rom-coms like this one. Now, obviously, there's a lot to love about this film. I love the lead actors, both of whom really give terrific performances. Soni has this very exquisitely crafted face, but he's also very expressive. He has beautiful eyes, so he really captures the sort of nervous, indrawn, introverted Naveen, who also tends to view his parents through the lens of they're just conservative, old-fashioned Indian parents. They know he's gay, but he has the feeling that they're never really comfortable with his sexuality. And frankly, I'm not sure that he is comfortable with his sexuality. And Jay, who is much more exuberant, much more expressive in his feelings, says as much to him. He's like, I don't think you are really comfortable with the bigness of love. And it's something that I think is the film really kind of engages with in a really sophisticated way, is the way in which Naveen has seemingly sort of internalized this idea that his parents are, not accepting of him, even though they are. They just don't always have the best way of expressing it. And that's very true, particularly of his father, played by Harish Patel, who I think does a lot of really interesting things with this more stoic, withdrawn Indian traditional father figure, whereas his mother, who's played by Zarina Garg, is much more outgoing and much more explicit in her approval of her son and her attempts to sort of understand who he is as a young gay man. And so there's, obviously there's a lot of hilarity. This is a very funny movie. There's a particularly extraordinary moment early in the film where Naveen is leaving voice memos and trying to hook up with some guys and ends up being extremely awkward. And there's other moments too that are just really side-splittingly funny. And I give a lot of credit also to the supporting cast, who is extraordinary in this film and really kind of gives it that light on its feet sense of humor. But it's really the romance between Naveen and Jay that really makes it work, and I give credit to both of the actors for really capturing that chemistry, and it's very heartfelt. The moment when Naveen finally admits that he wants that big wedding, that big, proud romance, is a really remarkable one for them both, and it really sort of helps establish how much they genuinely love each other, which Naveen really struggles with that. He struggles, as I said earlier, with the bigness of love. Now, that's obviously not something I struggle with, but I did recognize in his, sort of internalizing and projecting onto his parents something that may not be there. And I really appreciate the way the film kind of reminds us that we need to meet people with grace and to accept them for who they are. It's, kind of meet them halfway sometimes, as difficult as that may be. And I also appreciated that the film really is quite a heartfelt look at, interracial love, yes, but also intercultural. And I love that, each of the characters has to sort of accept the other for who they are. And each of them brings something unique and really poignant to the table in terms of making this relationship work, since they're so different as people. And, there are some really extraordinary moments. There's obviously sort of the meet cute itself, which is in there, very cringy in some ways, because when they go to this Hindi film, Jay ends up singing to Naveen on the street, which of course for someone who's very withdrawn and someone who's very uncomfortable with bigness of feelings, particularly in Bollywood, that can be really, causes embarrassment for Naveen. And, at the same time, it's clear that Naveen appreciates that part of Jay, that's the thing that he loves about this man that he has invited into his life, is that each of them completes the other. And, because Jay is an artist, he's a photographer, he brings that more, not spiritual, yes, but also just sort of a more happy-go-lucky, just sort of almost mystical approach. And, I mean, that's something that resonates with we Pisces, obviously, since we're often that person in our own relationships with others. And, I appreciate that, as we grapple with feelings and cultural changes and all that kind of stuff, those are all really big issues, and not every rom-com can address those with sophistication or with grace or nuance, but I do think that this film really does accomplish that remarkably well. It's a very good screenplay. It's only an hour and 30 odd minutes, 36 I believe, and it manages to get with that stuff. And the father stuff in particular, like there's this moment where Jay and Naveen's father bond over their mutual love of Naveen and their appreciation of how he's a beautiful soul, even though he sometimes has trouble expressing that. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I think that we need these kinds of stories, both because I just love gay stories and, I love to weep. I got very weepy at a couple of key moments. The moment when they talk about their love, and the moment that Jay bonds with Naveen's father. Like, all of those moments were really poignant and really heartfelt and really tugged at my heart. And I also appreciate that it makes me laugh, and there's all the feelings. And I think that not every film can kind of move gracefully through those different emotional registers, but I think that A Nice Indian Boy really does that. And I think that in these days, when the world really fucking sucks, and when it's really hard to, feel optimistic as a queer person, I feel like these films really have a role to play. And, obviously, as a writer of queer rom-coms, that means a lot to me as well. And so I really recommend this film to all of you out there in TikTok land and elsewhere, because I think that it's just a gem of a movie that reminds us that there is space for love and joy in our lives. And, it may take some getting used to, and it may take, everyone sort of meeting one another at the spaces they need to, but we can do it. And so I really highly recommend A Nice Indian Boy, which I think is just a tremendous showcase for both lead actors as well as the supporting cast, all of whom are excellent. And so if you can, snag it. It is, I think, in some theaters, but it's definitely for rent on Apple TV and Amazon, so it's only about $10, so it's definitely worth supporting. If we want people to make good queer movies, we have to support them, and we have to buy them, we have to rent them, we have to show up for them, because God knows the studios are not going to make them otherwise. So anyway, go out and see A Nice Indian Boy however you can. It gives the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture seal of approval. So that is it for today's episode. I'm, of course, your host, TJ. I love A Nice Indian Boy. Go out, see if you can. And, of course, I love all of you. So have a great day, y'all, and I'll be back soon.